welcome back to another video. So we're back today with this beautiful piece of artwork by Grazia Salvo. This is from her Wild Souls coloring book. This is the coloring book here that I got the image out of. It's got lots of beautiful images in here. They are all grayscale, but I am in love with this book. I did scan this image into my computer and then I just cropped it around the edges on the screen, and then I was able to print it out on the Strathmore colored pencil paper. I will have everything you see in this video linked down in the description below so that you can easily find it. There were some previous videos and this is a full color along here on my channel. They are all in a playlist that will also be linked in the description box down below, and I will try to put it also in the upper right hand corner of the video so that if you want to follow this color along, you could do it from the very beginning up until this video, which should be the very last one. I had a request in my Facebook group to show how to cover large areas, so I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to show you how I cover larger areas, because her clothing is a much larger area and the way that I lay down the colors is a little bit different than I would if I were doing something like the hair I did on this page, or the skin, or the fur tutorial that I did on this beautiful leopard here. I'm also going to discuss a little bit about balance and how I chose the colors that I did to color in her clothing. With the colors that I decided to go with, I think at the end of the video, after we see all of this come together, I think it's going to be absolutely beautiful. Anything you see in this video will be linked in the description box below. You will also find links down there for my Facebook group, my email list, my Etsy shop, and my Patreon if you would like to support me there. I also now have channel membership. If you would like more information on that, you could click the join button down below. So let's first talk about the colors that I chose and why I chose these colors. I will say that I'm going to try to complete this with just 3 colors. I may need to bring in one more color, and I think that her collar here is actually going to be a different color, as well as the zipper here. I think the zipper will probably maybe be in grays. I've really not decided that part yet, and I think I may do gray buttons, maybe a very pale gray. I don't know yet. We're going to see where this video goes. But as far as her actual clothing, I have picked some colors, and the reason that I picked these colors is because I want to bring some balance to the page. So because I went with red for her lips, I wanted to bring that down into her clothing as well, and I think it's really going to make this page pop, and it's all going to come together and look absolutely beautiful. I think that the red is really going to stand out, and so we'll still be able to see the gorgeous leopard here in the background, and the clothes will be very separated rather than everything just all coming together, because I could have gone with something like browns or tans or something like that, but had I done that, it would have just made everything just all sort of come together, and when somebody looks at the coloring page, it would cause each object on the coloring page to not stand out as an individual item. And what I'm trying to do on this page is when someone looks at it, the eye goes directly to something on the page, and each one of the different objects on the page is separated and has its own place and still really stands out. And this leopard is so gorgeous, and I love the way that he turned out. So I just didn't want this leopard to be drowned out by something like the clothing, or for the clothing to blend right into the leopard. I want them just to stand out as 2 separate objects on the coloring page. So I decided to go with reds because her lips were red, and the color combination that I chose to create the red in her shirt is Crimson Lake, Crimson Red, and Blush Pink. And you can see that my tips of my pencils are pretty dull. I just find that when I'm covering a larger area and my pencils have a duller tip on them, it makes it much easier on me to be able to do a back and forth stroke, and it allows the colors to come together nicely without leaving any harsh lines on the object, because larger objects are a little bit trickier. You have probably noticed in a lot of the coloring books that are most popular, like Johanna Basford's coloring books, World of Flowers, Secret Garden, or any of those, you probably notice that a lot of the spaces that you're covering are a lot smaller. Like you're coloring a lot of leaves, you're coloring animals that have maybe separate parts that are a lot smaller, some birds, and their wings are a lot of times separated from the rest of the body. And here in her clothing, we have a much larger area to cover, and so there is a little bit of a different way that I do go about doing this and laying the colors down. Now, I think just to be safe, so that I don't go into the wrong areas, I'm going to go ahead and color in this zipper. And I decided to go with grays. And I'm going with warmer grays, and that's because I'm using red, and red is a warm color, so I'm going to go with the warmer grays. And I have a few colors here. I also have my Holbein white, but I do need to sharpen these because you can see here that this is much more detailed, and I need to be able to go over all of these little lines around where the zipper is. And I think I may be doing her collar in gray as well, and possibly these buttons, and then this little tag here that is hanging over her sleeve. So the colors that I'm using are 30% warm gray, 20% warm gray, and I have 10% warm gray. I also have this 70% warm gray, but I think that this may be a little bit too dark. I might have to get one that is a little bit lighter, but I don't know yet because I may use it just to line some of the zipper. So I'm going to take my darkest color and I'm just going to sort of go over some of this. And I'm just tracing the lines is really all I'm doing here. And then the little pulley for the zipper. My gosh, I can't even think of what to call this right now. But I'm just shading some of this in and outlining it. And I think this color should be dark enough. And I want to just go like this just a little bit to widen that color because, again, I don't want any straight harsh lines. You'll probably hear me repeat that a gazillion times. No harsh straight lines. Always blend them out a little bit so that they look more natural. Now I'm going to use my 20% warm gray and I'm going to spread it out even more. Oh, and I didn't go over any of these yet, so let's go ahead and go over all of these little zipper lines here. And I'm pulling this color up just a little bit more. And then I'm going to use my lightest of my grays. This is the 10%, and I'm just going to color this in and spread the color out a little bit more. And I might have to come back again with a darker color just to outline some of this a little bit more. Okay, y'all, I found my 50% warm gray. It was hiding on me, and I am going to come in here and just outline the zipper just to make it a little bit darker so it'll stand out. And I'm sort of just drawing it back in, and then I'm going to go over all these little zipper lines so that they really stand out as well. Now I'm going to come back over it with my 30% warm gray, and I'm just going to spread it out just a little bit and blend it in. So again, I don't have all those harsh lines. I think that maybe we should go ahead and do the buttons first as well. And maybe her collar should be more white with a very pale, pale gray. I'm sort of deciding this as I go along. I'm wondering if maybe a cooler gray would look better for the collar. So I think the cooler grays are actually going to be brighter. So I think I'm going to use the cooler grays for the buttons and the collar here. And maybe this little tag with the button here that's hanging over her sleeve. Okay, so I have my Holbein white, and I'm going to come in here and just lay some of this down first, just so that I have an initial layer. And then I'm going to come in here with the cool gray, and I'm going to start laying some of this down. And we need to go a little bit darker here, so I'm going to go to the 20% cool gray. And I just really want this to look white, so I need to cover a lot of that line art there. And when you're trying to create white, you generally just use grays. So I think that I want to use this cooler gray and just sort of go over this as well. I think I like the cooler grays better, actually. See how when you're coloring, you just sort of change your mind as you go? At least I do. And it looks much better now that I've spread some of this color out and made it a little bit lighter. Oh, I like how that looks much better. So let's go back up here and get some more of this color laid down. Okay, so let's come back with the 20%. I really want to go over this black line art here and get rid of a lot of it so that this actually looks white. I think I really like the cool grays much better than the warmer grays. Okay, so I'm just laying the Holbein white right over it. But after I get everything else colored in, it will really stand out and look a lot more white. This Holbein white, y'all, I tell you, it's just amazing. Okay, so I grabbed the 50% cool gray, and I'm only going to use this just to add some shadows here, and not too much of it at all. I still want it to look white, and I don't want to add too much, but I want to show where these two pieces separate here at the same time. And I'll just go over it here again with the white Holbein. And I think those lines that were in the artwork just naturally make it look nice. So now she has a white collar, and I really wasn't intending on doing that. I think we need to go ahead and color in the buttons now. I'm going to go over this a little bit with the white Holbein to make this look how I want it to look. It's really lightening it up a lot, and it's making it match her collar just a little bit more. Oh, I think I like that much better. We'll have to see how it looks when we start playing with the reds and adding those in there. But let's go ahead and get the buttons done so that the buttons have their own separate place, and then this little tag here that's laying over the sleeve. So that was the 50% cool gray, and now I'm just going to blend it out a little bit with the 20% cool gray. I'm going to add a little bit here to the button, and now I have the 10% cool gray, and I'm just going to go in a circular motion and blend all these colors out, and then go over it with my white Holbein. I want the most of the shadow to be right here by where the button is. I'm going to be daring here with my 70% cool gray and really make the outline here for this button. There we go. Probably need to do the same here and then spread it out a little bit. I'm barely touching the paper when I do this, and then I'll come back with my 50% gray and I'll just sort of spread that color out a little bit. I'm going to use my white Holbein just to make it look more like a button and add that little dot of highlight. And now we need to come in here and do these buttons, and since you saw how I did the button, I'm going to go ahead and do these, and I'm going to speed it up. Okay, so now we're ready to come in with our reds. Since I decided to color everything else first and get those out of the way, I'm going to go over the colors I have again. I've got Crimson Red, Crimson Lake, and Blush Pink. And when I'm covering larger areas, I like to use my lightest color first. So I'm going to come in with my Blush Pink. Again, I have a pretty blunt tip on my pencil, and I am just going to lay the highlighted sections where I want them. So when I'm doing clothing, I just sort of decide where I feel like the light is going to be hitting, or where there would be maybe like a crease in her clothing, and I add most of the highlights around those areas or in those areas. And over here on this grayscale image, supposedly there's a lot of creases right here going down the side of her sleeve. So in between the creases, I'm going to add a little bit of my lighter color here. And I am also using this lightest color as a first layer. So I am going to just lay this color all throughout the sleeve, and then I'm going to blend my other color into it. And a lot of the reason I'm doing this is because this is the Strathmore colored pencil paper, and so you really need to pile your layers on this paper. And because this is clothing, I also want the clothing to look as though it's textured or has a little bit of texture in the fabric. And we have a highlighted area here, and generally I'm just putting this color in most of the places where you would see a lot of the lighter color or the lighter grayscale. And that's sort of a hint as to where to lay the color. Now I have my Crimson Red, and I do have a more blunt tip, like I said, on my pencil. And I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to start laying down some of this color. And for right now, I'm using a back and forth stroke with my pencil. And I'm just sort of following the grayscale, but also blending into that previous color as well. And I'm using very, very light pressure. So if you are not someone who has really trained yourself to use pretty light pressure, I would suggest holding your fingers back a lot more on your pencil like this, because by doing that it will help you not to lay a lot of pressure behind your pencil. So I need to turn here a little bit, and I am turning my pencil as well so that I can keep the same tip, because if you continue to just turn your pencil as you color, it will keep the tip of your pencil pretty even so that you don't have to go back and sharpen it. And I really don't want to have to sharpen my pencils here, because I want to be able to keep that dull tip on my pencil, because I want to do a lot of blending these colors right into each other. And you can see right here, I'm just sort of following the grayscale, and I am going the opposite direction of when I laid down that previous color. And I'm going very lightly, and I'm just blending this color right into that color to create another color. And when I'm covering larger areas, I go very, very slowly, because it's much easier to do it very slowly and think about what you're doing before you end up making a mistake. And remember, this is only my medium tone that I decided to go with. I still have that much darker color that I need to come back with. And a lot of this is all about placement of the colors, so that before I come in and I go really hard with my pencils and really get that vibrant red down there, I'm making a place for where I want all my color to be laid and where I want my highlight to be and where I want my darker colors to be. And I'm also working on creating that separation in the different places on her clothing. And I think I'm going to come back here with my Crimson Lake, and I'm going to start adding some of this color in because I really just want to be able to go ahead and get in here and outline some of these areas to see where the darker color is going to need to be, so I could start creating some of that depth and dimension and be able to get an idea of what it's going to look like. So you can see that I'm just following those lines of the grayscale. And again, I'm still using that back and forth stroking motion. And right here where her button is on her clothing, since the button is laying on top of her clothing, or this little tag, I want to make sure that I reflect that in my coloring. And so this right here is naturally going to be a lot darker, because wherever something is laying over something else, it's creating a bit more of a shadow. And so you want a lot more depth and dimension in there. And when somebody looks at your coloring piece, you want it to reflect that. So now I'm just separating this area here, which is the sleeve, from the front part of her shirt. And then I'm going to end up coming back in here and using a lighter color so that they stand out from one another and you can see that separation. And I'm trying to add back in some of those places where the artwork originally had those lines to show that there was some creasing here on her clothing, but I'm also doing a little bit of my own thing at the same time. Okay, so I'm coming back in here with a little bit harder pressure just to get some of that color down on the paper. Okay, so let me grab my next color. This is the Crimson Red, and we are going to start blending some of this color into those other colors. And you can see that I'm leaving some of these areas white, like over here and in here, because I want to slowly bring this color into the other colors. And I still do want to keep some of that white space so that I can come back over again with that blush pink and fill some of that in. And I'm going to continue to use this back and forth stroking motion with my pencil. And all I'm doing is just really applying some layers of color down here onto the paper. So I have quite a bit of color down there. Let me come back here to the back side of her clothing and just pull some of this out. But I do want this right here to really stand out. So I think that I need to come back in here with this Crimson Lake, and I need to make this a little bit darker. And I may have to come back and add in one more color because I don't think this is going to be dark enough. And the whole point of doing this is just to get a lot of the white of the paper filled, but you don't want to use too hard a pressure because you don't want to completely get rid of all of that tooth in the paper. I want to use a lot of that tooth that's in the paper to create that look of the fabric having some sort of texture. So I'm going to now grab this blush pink, and I'm going to just blend some of this in over here. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and come over here and sort of start using the same stroking motion and blending some of these colors together. So I'm going to go ahead and come back with my white Holbein, and I'm just going to go up and down here with that color and add a few highlights in here. And now I have the Crimson Lake, and again I want to make sure where I have this little tag over here, I want to create that illusion that it is actually laying over the top of her sleeve. We are going to come here and start doing her collar now. So I've already laid down the blush pink, and I'm going to come right in with my Crimson Red. And again, I'm just following the grayscale, and I want to leave an open area here where I want the blush pink and possibly a little bit of my white Holbein. I don't know yet. I'm going to fill in a little bit here and then just frame around this right here, because the main color in these areas is going to be the blush pink. And I'm going to have to come back with the blush pink and sort of blend all of that in. And again, right here, it was much darker. And then I'm going to put a little bit of this here, but mainly this is going to be the blush pink. And this area here, because it's a much smaller area to cover, this is going to be a lot easier. The tricky part is really where you're covering large areas. And I don't think a whole lot of us really realize, like we look at books like Kirby Rosanes and we find those a little bit intimidating, but then we all cover in Johanna Basford's books. And I don't think you realize when you're coloring in Johanna Basford's books, those books have a lot of the little small intricate details. So when you're coloring those areas, like say you're coloring a flower, for instance, you're covering a bunch of little tiny small parts. You're not working on having to color a much larger area. And I think that's why this video was requested. And somebody wanted me to just show how to cover a larger area because it is quite different. You saw down here when I was trying to cover that much larger area, how I just went in very, very slowly. And I was very careful about where I laid my color. And I'll have to do the same thing when I come over here. And this area here is probably a lot more difficult than when I come back and do this part here. I'm going to come back and just blend some of these colors out. But again, I am going pretty lightly still. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to lay this color down too. And I'm sort of moving my pencil in a more circular motion because I want to pull these colors together. And I'm trying to be really careful about staying out of the collar here where I want it to just look white. I'm just going over these areas with my white Holbein because I think it'll look a little better than the pink. And I think I do actually like that. So that means, so this line can continue all the way across. Probably should grab my Crimson Lake and line that area there as well so I can do that again. So I think I'm going to do that in here now as well. See, again, I changed my mind. But I just really like that. And then we'll do the same thing here. And now it matches her collar a little bit better and it really makes those areas stand out quite a bit. So I think I'm going to do the same thing here and just sort of pull these colors together. And wow, if y'all don't have a white Holbein, this has very quickly become one of my favorite tools. Okay, so there is a little area here as well that I think I'm going to do a little something different with. So all around the buttons, you really want to make sure that you have a good amount of your darkest color in there. Again, when you're first laying the color down, don't go right in and lay it all down right away. Go slow and just go around where the buttons have been colored. And then around here where the zipper is, I want to make sure that's really going to stand out as well. So I'm going to go up and down along this zipper here. And then I'm sort of going in a circular motion to pull that color into my highlight color. And this is my darkest color I'm using. I apologize if I didn't mention that. This is the Crimson Lake. And then over here on this side, and I'm trying to stay on the flatter side of my pencil. And this is why it's so important when you're doing stuff like this to have a little bit of a duller lead. Yes, there are a lot more times when you want a pretty sharp tip on your pencil, especially when you're trying to get into the very intricate spaces. Like I could probably even have a sharper tip when I was going through here and lining around this area or the zipper, but that would have applied a lot more pigment down on the paper right away or immediately. And I want the opportunity to be able to just go in this circular motion and sort of pull the colors out. And I want to be able to do that in every single place where I've laid this color down. And then over here I have the much darker color. So I'm probably going to have to do a little bit of a lighter color here so that we can make sure we've got this division here between the two sides. So I'm going to have to come in here much lighter. So now I'm going to come back with the Crimson Red. And I'm trying to find the flatter part of my pencil, and I'm going to start going in a circular motion, and I am going over the darker color and just pulling it down, and I'm blending some of this color in, not even all the way to the edge of the sleeve. And I want quite a bit of highlights here in the front of her outfit. I think I went down a little bit too low here, but that's not anything an eraser can't fix. And I'm going to start now pulling the color up a little bit into the highlighted area. And now you can see I'm using a little bit more of that up and down stroke with my pencil. So I'm going to come back now with my blush pink and I'm going to go in a circular motion and start adding a little bit more of this in here and sort of blending some of these colors out. And I really want a highlight going all through here and then a little bit over here and then down into here just to create the look of separation between her sleeve and the front part of her clothing. And so if you look at the sleeve, you can see that we still need to get in a few more layers here and sort of spread this color out. By the way, this is the Crimson Red. So now that I know I have all my colors placed exactly where I want them and they look good, I'm going to come in here and use a circular motion, just sort of start blending some of this color into that highlight color and create more layers and darken it up just a bit. I have the Crimson Lake now, and we need to come in here and just start adding another layer in here and making this just a little bit more vibrant, creating that separation there between some of these areas. Over here I want it much darker because it's right here, right up against and around those buttons, and then we have the leopard over here, and then maybe a little bit more depth here around the zipper. I am using much harder pressure at this point. And then I'm going to come back with the Crimson Red and just add a little bit more of this in here just to apply another layer, and I think we're about done. I might do something else with the buttons because they look really still very gray. I'm going to try to come in here around the zipper. Now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make this white, and I don't care if it pulls some of the red in because we have a lot of the blush pink highlights, and so it just sort of blends right in there and adds a really nice touch. I'm glad I decided to make that white. And then through here I want to create that separation, so I'm just going to go down here between the front of her outfit and that sleeve, and I'm just going to make a little bit of a highlight right down through there. And then I'm going to do the same thing up here and then blend some of these colors. But I think I like it. I might come back and change up some of the buttons and do something different. I don't know. That's the only part I'm not like, oh wow about, but I think they do blend in really nicely with the rest of it. So y'all have to let me know what you think down in the comments below. That completes this whole color along, and I hope that y'all enjoyed it. Everything that you've seen in this video will be linked in the description box below. If you have watched through this one but didn't see the previous tutorials, I will have the full color along in a playlist in the upper right hand corner, and I'll try to put it in the description box as well. I hope y'all have a wonderful day. Happy coloring. Bye.